So we made some apple pie moonshine. Want to find out what the recipe is? Let's quickly have a look. Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Beaver DIY day. Once again, thank you very much to everybody for the support on the channel thus far. It has been amazing. Thank you for the questions, thank you for the emails, thank you for the WhatsApps. It has been a pleasure to help everybody and to chat with everybody and bounce ideas off of each other. It is really a dream come true of mine to be able to be a part of this community. So yeah, thank you very much to everybody and keep it coming. So yeah, as I said in the intro, guys, we are making our own apple pie moonshine. So I tried this, a similar thing to this, in a small town called Nelspruit in South Africa many years ago, and since then I've always wanted to try and make it, or wanted to make it, never got around to it. So luckily on the channel a couple of suggestions came in for me to take my Umqumbothi Whiskey and make a apple pie moonshine with it. Luckily one of our friends over in America sent me a recipe that he swears by, and yeah, we'll be trying his recipe bar a couple of liberties or stuff that I couldn't find in South Africa. To start off with, he suggested either Everclear, which is a very high proof vodka in America, or your own moonshine at a high proof of at least 55% or above. So luckily I proofed down my Umqumbothi Whiskey to 55%, so I've got 1 liter of our Umqumbothi Whiskey over here. Other things that I will be using that I couldn't find that I'm going to substitute is instead of vanilla bean, we'll be using vanilla essence. I know it's not the same thing, but I couldn't find vanilla bean in South Africa, not in South Africa, but in my region where I was in the last couple of days. So yeah, I'm going to have to set off with some vanilla essence. Also, one of the big liberties I'm going to be taking is on the apple juice. The recipe that he used called for half apple juice and half apple cider, and we in South Africa, or at least once again where I looked for the stuff, I couldn't find apple cider. He suggested that I do a concentrate version of it. So what a concentrate version of it is, we will talk about a little bit later on. But yeah, cider is not the drink or the apple cider alcoholic beverage that we know in South Africa. It is unfiltered and unpasteurized apple juice. So it still has all the pulp and all the other lovely bits in it that gives it a authentic flavor. He gave me a nice recipe for playing around or getting something similar flavor into it. So we'll be doing that. He also suggested that I switch out some of the sugar for some honey. So I'll be going for some honey. And then yeah, so let's get into the recipe. Hold on, before we get into the recipe, quick feedback on the Umqumbothi Whiskey while we are talking about it for everybody that's interested. So over here is our wood finished Umqumbothi Whiskey. The wood has now started adding some beautiful color into the Umqumbothi, and the nice woody flavors are starting to come through, and yeah, it's quite pleasant. And it's slowly turning into a nice drinkable whiskey without that very new makey tastes. For everybody that has made the whiskey will know what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's mellowing it out. You're getting that vanilla, you're getting that caramel flavors and all that lovely flavors out of the wood. So yeah, if you want to check what I did here, link up for the Umqumbothi Whiskey and how I distilled it and then aged it. Cool. Over here what we have is our butterscotch. So as you can see, the butterscotch also nice and clear, and I also aged it with a little bit of wood once again. So that butterscotch candy that we put in here gave a beautiful butterscotch flavor, nice and sweet, very butterscotch heavy. The wood has pulled back on that sweetness, and it is also once again starting to turn into a nice little sipping whiskey that you can enjoy. Okay, so let's get into the recipe. Enough talking, let's get into it. So once again, exact volumes, quantities and everything down in the description, or send me an email and I will send you the recipe But yeah, so what we're going to need is 2 liters of your apple juice. So if you can get a 2-liter jug, go for it. Once again, the place I bought at only sold 1.5 liters and a half liters. So yeah, you will be needing sugar. So I'm going for normal white sugar. You will be needing some honey, vanilla essence. You'll be needing 4 apples, some black pepper, some nutmeg, and then some cinnamon sticks. Okay, I'll also be using a little bit of juice from a lemon just to get some acidity into the mixture. So yeah, let's start with the recipe. Firstly, what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 liter of our apple juice and our sugar, and we're going to dissolve it and heat it up and bring it to a boil. And then what we're going to do is we're going to reduce that apple juice down into a thick syrup, so into a concentrate. That, as well as what we're going to do with our apples. So let's get our apple juice on and cooking. Okay, so like I said, we are going for 1 liter of juice that we need to cook down. So this is a 500 ml. That goes straight in, and then we need to measure out 500 ml from this liter jug. Okay, so that's 500 ml out of this 500 ml jar, and that means that there is 1 liter of apple juice in our pot that we're bringing up to temp. While that is coming up to temp, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding 2 of our cinnamon sticks into the mixture, and that's going to cook with that, imparting some of that nice cinnamon flavors. We are also going to be adding our sugar. So in goes our sugar. And then while that is coming up to temp, I'm just going to peel 2 of my apples and I'm going to slice it into 8s. Okay, as always, try and get your pips and your stems and that type of stuff out. You don't want that in your mix. And yeah, the cleaner it goes in, the cleaner it comes out. Okay, so while that is coming up to the boil, time to add some nutmeg and some black pepper into this as well, just to get that infusion process started. So be careful on the black pepper. You're only going to use a very little bit. It just gives a bit of a bite apparently to it that gives a nice citrusly sweet flavor to the apple pie, that heightens the apple pie flavor. So yeah, and then nutmeg, once again, very strong flavors, so go for a little bit. So if you don't like honey, if you don't like the taste of honey, you can go all sugar. So I'm going for a cup of honey on the volume that we're doing here. And then 1 teaspoon of vanilla essence. If you had a vanilla bean, you would take a vanilla bean, split it, remove the pips, and then bend the vanilla bean, put it into this liquid so it also comes up to a boil with this whole syrupy goodness that we have here. Okay, so that's all the ingredients in the pot. All we're going to do now is we're going to keep on stirring it so nothing burns, and we're going to let that reduce down to about half of the current volume that we have there. So yeah, it's going to take about an hour, maybe hour and a half of stirring and cooking at high heat to get that down to the volume. So once we get this into a syrupy consistence, I will be back with you guys. Cool. Okay, so as we can see that these bubbles are starting to turn really small now, and the consistency of this is getting into a nice syrupy thickness. You don't want it all the way down to a syrup. So if you can remember, the pot was about all the way to the top, and it has now reduced down to about half of its volume, and we can see that the cinnamon stick, and you can smell the cinnamon coming, the cinnamon flavor coming off of this, and all the peels of the apple has now started turning translucent. So next up, all we need to do is drain this so we can catch all this sediment, and then yeah, we'll see the next step. So let's get into draining. Okay, so with the heat turned off, time to drain this. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass it through this sieve, nice and slowly. Okay, so just to get that last little bit of syrupy, sugary goodness out of that pot there, what I've done is I've just taken my juice, and while this was cooking down, I put it into the freezer to get the temperature down quite low, because I want to crash the temperature on this quite quickly so I can add my alcohol. Remember, your same process as distillation. The moment you hit critical temperature on your alcohol, the alcohol will start evaporating off, and you don't want that. You want that nice bite. So this I put into the fridge, but I'm just going to use a little bit now into this hot pot to scrape the sides down and get as much of that concentrated flavor into this before we cool this down, and then start distributing it into our jars. Okay, so what you do with all the apples and the cinnamon sticks, whatever you want to, you can take the cinnamon sticks out, let them, wash them in a little bit of water, let them dry, and reuse them for the next batch. Or you can use them in your jars, whatever you feel like doing, it's up to you. The apple slices are very sweet, sticky, and taste like apple pie. So you can eat those, and yeah, actually tastes quite nice. So next up, we need to take this thick syrupy batch, add our cold apple juice to it, take a little bit of our lemon, squeeze our lemon juice in it. So the lemon is to flavor. I use just a quick squeeze on half a lemon. This is just to bring some flavor to the top. Fresh lemon always just heightens some flavors and makes the sweetness come out. So that's that. Next up, we're going to give this a quick stir and a taste. If we need to adjust anything like the sweetness or the vanilla or whatever we want to adjust, we're going to adjust it now before we start adding our alcohol and that type of stuff. Okay, that's sweet, right on the money, exactly where we want it. So next up, what I'm going to do is just going to move this to the side, cut up my apples, and then I need to put the apple pie mixture with the alcohol and then divide it into the jars. Okay, so we should get about 2.5 liters of liquid out of this. We might be left with half a jar here. So what I'm going to do is I will be dividing everything up in halves or into thirds, and then we'll see where we end up. Maybe we'll be ending up with three-quarter jars or whatever. So yeah, you can always add a little bit more of your apple juice to bring it up to 3 liters. It's up to you. I just took the recipe as close as I could to get those flavors, and then I can start building from that. So time to get our apple. This time we're not going to peel it. We are going to leave the skin on, or the peel on. We are just going to remove the pip, the stems, and then the little fluffy bit at the bottom. Okay, now depending on the level of cinnamon flavor that you want, so you can taste that and then adjust the cinnamon flavor I want a little bit more cinnamon flavor in this because I like the cinnamon flavor. If you don't like it, don't add any cinnamon afterwards, because cinnamon a little goes a long way. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take one stick and I'm going to try and break it into even thirds and then divide them into the jars. Next up, a little squirt of honey into each jar, and then a tiny bit of vanilla essence into each one. So I'm going for about 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so next up, all we're going to do now is divide this up evenly between our jars, and then add our alcohol, give it a good, put the lids on, give it a good shake. Okay, so with any bit of luck, if everything worked together like it more than likely won't, you should have 3 jars that is filled to the lip. So these are about 1 liter jars, so filled to just below the head line with a nice boozy concoction. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to quickly give it a stir, decant some, taste it, and then see if I need to adjust anything. Remember that the cinnamon flavor will increase over time, so after about 3 days I will strain out everything and only the liquid will be left over, but that's purely up to you if you want more or less flavor. That depends, all up to you. That is the Apple Pie Moonshine, and yeah, let's quickly give it a taste. So nice, strong, boozy flavor on the nose and sweet apple pie. This is a really nice recipe, guys. I hope you give it a try, and if you do, please put your feedback or your suggestions or anything in the comments once again, and as always, have a lekker day.